What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Pier and Beam versus Slab Foundations, pros and cons of both, why you should choose one or the other, and all that good stuff. And a lot of people have been asking for this video, so here it is. But I would like to say right off the bat, excuse me, if you guys haven't, I'd appreciate you subscribing if you like videos like this, or if you want to follow my off-the-grid build and some other stuff that I create here on this channel. And ring the bell and like this video. That is huge for me. That helps me out a lot. And if you guys have any questions or other videos you want to see or questions about this specific video, I'd love for you guys to leave it in the comments below, and I go through and read all those and respond to you guys and have some great conversation down there. So without any more waste of time, we're going to go over the differences between Pier and Beam foundations, and then we're going to go into the pros and cons of both, and then what might fit what you're trying to do. So right off the bat, we have a slab foundation here in this photo. Now, this is what you're going to see mainly here in Texas. I'm here in Texas, and a lot of production building is slab on grade, which basically means it's a slab poured onto just the ground, basically. And then the other one that we're going to be going over is a Pier and Beam foundation, where you're actually pouring piers into the ground. You're putting beams across those piers, and you're framing your floor up off of the ground. Which is more of a traditional style of building. It's something we've been doing for a very long time. And it works great. It works great. There's nothing wrong with it. So as we dive into these, I want to give you guys kind of a breakdown of the difference between the two, just so you kind of know overall what I'm talking about when I mention it. So right off the bat, let's start with the slab foundation. So this is what a slab foundation would look before the concrete gets poured. So you create, usually made out of 2x6s, you create a form, which basically you outline the pour site or your foundation with lumber, and then you're going to run these rebar rods through the middle of your slab, and then you're going to cover the dirt with plastic. You're going to have your footings, which are those dugout portions along the side of the foundation, and then that's going to get poured with concrete. Now, I know it's a lot more complicated than that, but this is just a simplified version. That concrete gets poured directly on top of that rebar and on top of the plastic, and then, which is basically your barrier, and then you're going to finish that concrete off flat, which is going to give you your foundation, which is a slab foundation. It's a slab of concrete on the ground, and it's basically slab on grade, which is usually what they're called, which means there's no basement, there's no anything to it except for the slab. It is on the ground, it's sturdy, it's solid, and then you start building your home on top. So here we have a Pier and Beam foundation, and this is the alternative to a slab, and probably the two most common versions besides basements. This is, there's a couple of different ways to do it. You can pour footings and have blocks at the bottom, and then you run your beams up, or you run your posts up and you put your beams across those posts. Or you can actually pour more of a pier style Pier and Beam, where you actually have concrete piers that come up to meet your beams, and then you frame your floor on top of that. Different people do it different ways, different locations do it different ways, but overall it's still a Pier and Beam foundation because you're using piers and you're using beams to accomplish your subfloor for your home. So those are kind of the two different forms of foundation that we're going to be talking about in this video. So right off the bat, let's go over the pros of the slab foundation. I'm going to see if I can get the picture here. The pros, I would say, of a slab foundation is one that they're just supposedly, and this is where things get kind of controversial, they're supposedly less expensive to produce and to create versus a Pier and Beam foundation. I don't find that to be entirely true, due to the form setup, due to the manpower that it takes to accomplish a slab foundation, the rebar, all that stuff, accounted for. I don't know if I would say it's less expensive. Now, if you're getting up to the larger homes, the 4,000, 5,000 square foot homes, I do believe slab is going to be a lot more cost effective. But if you're talking about 1,000 square foot home, a 1,200 square foot home, Pier and Beam, in my eyes, would potentially be cheaper, because you can run a Pier and Beam foundation with two guys, and your rebar costs are lower, your labor costs are lower, your dirt work and excavation work is lower. and your time frame for drying in order to build the foundation is lower. So it's actually quicker and less labor intensive. That's what I would say if you're building under that 2,000 to 3,000 square foot mark. Now, as soon as you get over that, slab is going to be cheaper. It's going to be more cost effective and more efficient. So the next pro of a slab, which this one's a little controversial for me as well, is that you don't have a crawl space, which means you don't have airspace under your home, which means it's technically more efficient because you're not going to be losing energy through your floors necessarily. Now you guys know my building science brain is going a little crazy here because I feel like Pier and Beam might be a little bit better for other reasons. But as of right now, these are some of the main talking points that people are going to sell you on when saying a slab is better. No crawl space, no airspace, meaning that there's less potential for rot when it comes to your floor. Obviously, there's no rot when it comes to your foundation, but it can rot up onto your 2x4s and your bottom plates. But overall, it reduces the ability for mold to be under your house and for rot to occur under your house. The next pro of a slab is just a wide range of flooring options. You can do tile without having to worry about it too much. You can do finished concrete, etched concrete, stained concrete. You can do all these different aspects on your floor, which gives you the ability to kind of do whatever you want. You can do anything. So those are some of the pros of a slab foundation. Now, I am a little biased because I am a little more Pier and Beam. I like Pier and Beam a little bit more, so I will say this is somewhat biased just because I'm not a fan of slab. But some of the cons of the slab is obviously there's no crawl space, which means you don't have storage under your house. But in all honesty, not too many people store things in a crawl space anyway. So I don't know if that would be considered a con. The other con is that all of your HVAC, all of your, plumbing and all that stuff has to come up through your walls. You can't run that through your floor directly to where you want that to go. So all of your plumbing is going to, for the most part, be in your walls when it comes to water. And if you wanted to run HVAC through your floors, if you wanted to run any type of anything, it's got to go in your walls or your attic space. So your utilities are configured differently, which in my eyes is a con. The next thing is your plumbing is in the concrete. If you guys see those white pipes coming out of the concrete, that's your plumbing. That's going to be your sewage. That's going to be your gray water. All that stuff has to go through your slab. So if you get a clog and it can't be fixed, or a pipe cracks because your foundation sinks or something like that, it is a major issue to fix. It is not easy to bust out concrete and fix plumbing. If there's a leak, if there's a water leak under your slab, it's not as simple to fix. It's a very extensive job. Another con is if your slab does start to sink, if your floor becomes uneven. I have some pictures here. If your foundation cracks, it is a very extensive project to get that fixed, to level your home on a slab foundation. It's not simple. It's not a DIY project. It takes specific equipment, specific know-how to really take care of that. So overall, once your slab's installed, it's durable. It's more durable, I would say, than a Pier and Beam. But if something were to happen and it would shift or it would break or crack, it's not very simple to fix. You're going to be, having a lot of issues, as you can see, digging holes in your foundation to try and repair that. So those are a few cons. I would say specifically here in Texas, I find cons of slabs. You're on the ground. You're on slab on grade, which means you're basically building a house on grade with the soil around you for the most part, which I've lived extensively in slab and Pier and Beam homes, and I've noticed that there are a lot more insects and bugs that get into your home when you are a slab on grade versus a Pier and Beam, just due to being down in the dirt versus up off the dirt. So that's kind of a personal thing that I've noticed living in both types of structures. Moving on to Pier and Beam, I would have to say there are a lot of pros to Pier and Beam. My number one pro would be easy to repair. If there's plumbing is all open under your home here. You can see in this picture, there's space for you to crawl under there. If you have a cracked pipe, if you have a water leak, if there's something going on down there, you have the ability to crawl under your house, assess what it is, and fix that specific spot without having to dig up your foundation and crawl through holes through a concrete hole that you just cut. A lot easier to repair. Another pro I would say is it's fairly easy to construct. As you guys can see, it's a very simple system. It's something that I think a couple people can install and you can get going really quick. So it comes down to like, are you building your own home? Are you doing a little cabin? Are you doing a 500 square foot home? Are you doing a little 1,200 square foot home? Like for me, my off the grid build, it was pretty much myself building it. I can build a post frame by myself. I don't need a bunch of contractors to set up my forms, to finish out the concrete, to tie and lay rebar. All the different stuff is eliminated. I just need to create my piers and then make sure everything's leveled off, and then I can start framing up my home as a solo project. So it's a lot more simple process, a lot less know-how required, or at least no specialty know-how when it comes to concrete. So that's a pro in my eyes. Another pro is the more ability to change your home layout. If you have a bathroom and you want to add a bathroom down the road, or you want to add a wet bar in your living room, stuff like that, you can just go into your house, run new plumbing, tie it in, and run water somewhere else, run plumbing somewhere else, install a bathroom. Maybe you're going to remodel a bathroom. You can put the toilet on the other wall. It's very simple. You just go into the house, you cut things out, you move them around. It's fairly inexpensive to do that. Whereas a slab, if your toilet's sitting in a corner where you keep getting your knees hit by the door, that's where the toilet's going unless you're ready for an extensive, project. So that's another huge bonus that I think comes with Pier and Beam. I honestly think, and I know I said as a pro to a slab, is that you have the ability to not have or better installation value. I don't think that's true. I think Pier and Beam gives you the ability to have a better insulated envelope of your home, especially with the modern technology that we have now with closed cell spray foam. When you have a crawl space like this in an unconditioned crawl space, you can spray foam that with closed cell spray foam, giving your home a really solid envelope from the floor all the way up to your attic, which means it's a lot more efficient than a slab because you can't insulate, a slab for the most part. The slab is what it is. So this would give you insulation and R value under your floor. Another pro, and I know I'm going through a lot of pros because I really do like Pier and Beam. Another pro is that you have flex, you have deflection on your floor. So as we all know, having worked years on concrete, it's not good for your joints. It's not good for your body to stand on concrete constantly. Your body needs a little bit of give when you're walking, when you're standing. So a Pier and Beam foundation gives more flex to your home, which means when you walk, it's not much, but you have some give every time you take a step, which is better for your joints, better for your body. You're not going to have that lower back problem or that joint problem as quickly as standing on concrete. That's just science, no matter if you're talking about homes or not. Concrete is very hard on the body. Having some type of give is a definite benefit to the occupants of the home having a Pier and Beam foundation. Another thing which I kind of mentioned is the Pier and Beam also lifts the home off of the ground, giving you the ability to separate yourself from insects, bugs. Here in Texas, we have millipedes that'll crawl through your door right up on your slab. I've lived in Pier and Beam here in Texas. I've lived on slab. Things get in on slabs, and if you're on a Pier and Beam, you're a little more separated from the dirt and all the other little critters here, and for me, it just seems like less of them get into the home. Now, building a tight envelope of a home helps with that even more so, but in the end, I've noticed that there's a difference when it comes to Pier and Beam and slab when it comes to insects. So overall, those would be some points that I would make of the pros for a Pier and Beam foundation. Now, for the cons of a Pier and Beam foundation, I would have to say it does limit your flooring options when it comes to if you wanted to do some type of concrete floor. You can't do that. If you wanted to do any extensive stone work, you would have to account for that when building your foundation. It's possible, but you would have to do more of extensive LVL framing when it comes to your floor joist, stuff like that. The next con would be it can limit the home's abilities when it comes to the actual floor plan and layout. For example, like if you're trying to do some large cathedral ceilings and you need to put metal I-beams or steel I-beams up there, and you're planning on doing all these crazy things with your home, that's going to be a little extensive to do on a Pier and Beam, right? You can do it, but at that point in time, the cost is not worth framing out a Pier and Beam to withstand the amount of weight and capacity that you're wanting to put on that project. Like I said, if you're building a 5,000 square foot home, I would lean towards slab. Another con is mold, rot, and termites. Your home is more susceptible to those things when you have a Pier and Beam. In my eyes, if you build it the right way, you're actually not, because you're actually removing and separating your wood members further away from the ground than they would be potentially if you were on a slab. If you think about a slab, your bottom plate is sitting right on that slab, which usually is only a few inches away from the dirt. If you do a pier and beam, you can have the first piece of your wood a solid 24, 36 inches above the dirt, creating a complete almost 3-foot separation from wood to dirt. Also, if you do vapor barriers and other things properly, when it comes to, and moisture barriers, when it comes to your foundation, I personally think you can avoid that even more so than you would with a slab foundation. But that is one of the cons of pier and beam, would be the mold, rot, and termites that can access your wood more easily than potentially a slab foundation. And then, like I've mentioned a few times here, is it's more expensive if you're doing a large home. I don't think it's more expensive to do a pier and beam if you're building an 1,100 square foot home, a 500 square foot little cabin. I think pier and beam is optimal for those homes. If you're reaching that 2,000, 3,000 square foot home, it is going to be more extensive and more expensive to do a pier and beam in that instance. So overall, guys, what I would like to say is, for all of these photos that I'm showing you here, this is a pier and beam. This is actually closer to the one that I just built for our guest house. Pier and beam has plenty of pros. If you're doing a smaller project, again, if you're doing something that's DIY, if you're doing something where you are going to use it as maybe a project, or you might think that you want to change the floor plan, or if you're building this as a forever home and you think you might have more kids and you might want to switch around the layout a little bit, 10 years down the road, pier and beam would be my suggestion. If you're building something that you just want to be durable, you might turn it into a rental, you just don't want to have any headaches, you might want to go slab. It's just more durable, less ability to break via improper treatment and lack of care. Slabs are a little more durable and mindless when it comes to that. But overall, I think your situation, your location, I know slabs aren't really big in cold climate areas. They're more in the immediate temperature to hot temperature zones. And, for whatever reason, if you want to do pier and beam, I think it's worth diving deeper into what it is that you specifically want out of the home. And if you want to do slab, again, you need to dive into what you actually want out of the home. If I had to choose, if I could only build one from here on out, I would obviously go with pier and beam, just due to the versatility of that foundation, the ability to change, the ability to even move the house if you want to down the road. There are a lot of benefits to doing that, and I think one of the huge benefits to pier and beam for me is the insulation value of being able to create a tight envelope from wall to floor to attic is an almost perfect envelope if you build it the correct way with the proper materials. So that's all I have to say. I'd made this longer than I really wanted to, but I hope that helps somebody understand the difference between pier and beam and slab foundation, why one chooses one over the other, and maybe what you might want for your personal build. I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching this video. Again, if you got anything out of it, I would appreciate a thumbs up, a subscribe, maybe ring the bell so you get notified when I drop a new video. And I think that's all I got for you guys today. I hope it helped. Much love, y'all.